guys, Okuma sent me this 20 wide 2-speed Makaira reel. It was the first reel Okuma ever sent me. I think that I've probably caught between 35 and 40,000 pounds of grouper on it. I've had it now for going on 6 years. And the only thing I've essentially had to do was straighten out the handle, because we bent the handle one time. And then the other thing I've done is change the line. So now it's time to get this old yellow line off of here, and we're gonna load it up with some diamond braid 65-pound 8X Generation 3 technology diamond braid. So I want to tell you some of the tricks that I use. First, I'm going to pull this yellow line off, and I'm not going to go all the way. I know a lot of you guys go, why don't you use a drill, and why don't you use take it to a store? And I'm going to tell you the reason why I don't do it is, one, by doing it this way, it lets me monitor the clicker, it lets me monitor the drag, how the reel goes into free spool. At this time, I can check to see if there's anything that I need to lubricate. And I also am checking to see if this line buried down in the spool while we were fishing. And if that's the case, then that tells me that I probably didn't put it on there tight enough, and more importantly, I didn't go in a zigzaggy X pattern quite fast enough so that it doesn't have the ability to bury in itself. That's one of the problems that you run into with braid, is if you don't put it on the right way, then it's going to be problematic down the road. So keep that in mind, that I'm doing this so that I can monitor how well we did over this period of time. You saw us use this rod and reel with Lauren Michelle and Mike Avanon in a big grouper show over in Naples. We've also used it for catching Goliath groupers with Randy Tao and Mark Fisher a few years ago. And it has really caught a lot of monster fish. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna pull a bunch of this yellow line off. I'm not gonna take it all off, and I'm gonna splice in using a bimini. We'll splice in the diamond braid to it, and then we top shot it so that we have fresh 65-pound braided line on this 2-speed Makaira reel. The key here is to just keep pulling it off the way you want. I load it up in the floor, and then I'll throw it away, dispose of it. So everybody always wonders, what do you do with all that line, man? Can you imagine how much line? Hundreds, if not thousands of yards of line that we've changed out. And certainly if you're out in the boat and you get a bird's nest or a big mess and you gotta cut it, don't throw it over, guys. Monofilament never, it's not biodegradable. It lasts 1,000,000 years on the ocean floor. It also is stuff that turtles get caught up in. I've had rays, I've had other sailfish and marlin where they were wrapped in somebody's line. And it's really important for the sea life as well as the environment. So I like to fold this up. You can take a pair of scissors if you want and cut it in half, but dispose of it in the trash so that it goes to the proper place, you know? So I'm gonna throw it away and let waste management decide what they wanna do with it. I've seen so many times when I've taken my reels to a bait and tackle store, and I'm not saying they're doing it wrong, but they're just not doing it the way that I wanna do it. And I'm not comfortable with the way they put the line on the reels at times, so I might as well just do it myself. A lot of times, as you can see, all of these reels are full. I just loaded these up for a show that we did with Mike Avanon and Brie over in Naples for Take a Soldier Fishing, which you'll see is a 2020 Sportsman Adventure episode where Brie went offshore fishing for big red groupers with Avanon and all of those. Andros reels there, as well as the metalloys. So now it's just time to get this Makyra, because I'm gonna be going back to my wrecks in the Gulf here pretty soon, because as the water temperature cools in the Gulf, the fishing really at times will really heat up. I can see some green line coming up, so I'm gonna get to where I last spliced this yellow stuff in here. Almost there. Here's the green. Pull off a little more of that. Now we'll pull out the old Danco pliers. I love these Dancos because they're so sharp. They cut the line real well. Now, guys, here's how it works. Whenever you're gonna load up or you're gonna reel onto a level line reel, it's really important that if it's going onto the top of the reel, the line's coming and you're winding, going onto the top of the reel, it's gotta come off the top of the spool. So when I load up this spool, I just simply took 2 screwdrivers, stuck them in the end of the spool, like so, and now I use that as a handle for my bucket. Again, I don't wanna have the line coming off the bottom of the spool. I want the line to come off the top so that it's going onto the reel, top around to the bottom and the rotation, and I don't have any twist that way. In most cases on a conventional reel, you don't get twist, but I just want to make sure that I'm putting it on the same way that at the manufacturer, when Diamond created this spool of line, that it's going on the same way that it went on the spool. It's coming off the same way as it went on. So it's really simple. I'm going to do a uni knot. So we got the green line. We're gonna go around the orange line through the loop multiple times, 7, 8, 9, 10 times. You'll see this here in a second. I'm gonna pull this down tight. Always wet every one knot that you ever make, whether you're tying a hook on, whether you're doing a uni knot, where you're doing this braid to braid. Always wet it before you cinch it down, because when you cinch it down, it heats up. And when things get hot, that's when they have a tendency to break. And it'll crystallize. And whether it's monofilament or braid, this is a real key thing to have. And gosh knows, you know, when you wet things, that's what lubrication's all about. So that when you pull it down tight, they snug right up to one another. Just like Red and Neville. Now we pull it tight. Now, if you tie a good knot, guys, and this is where we all make mistakes, we don't really cinch down our knots and we don't pull on them. Look, now I know that that's not gonna break. If you tie a good knot, you don't need to leave any extra hanging over, tag lines hanging over. So make sure you trim that nice and close. And again, if you have a good set of pliers, it's gonna cut through the braid with no problem. The same thing here. I'm gonna bend that so that's the only thing sticking up. We're gonna get close, cut it off tight. Boom. Now we're ready to go. I'm gonna put a glove on so that I can put some extra tension on it, but I'm gonna use my foot like a gas pedal. Pull the rod out. You can tell this reel has got some high mileage. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get this started, get the loop. Here's my double uni knot, back-to-back uni knots. Now to add a little extra pressure, I'm just gonna push my foot on the spool. And it's kind of like a gas pedal. And just give it a little more gas. Put the edge of it on there. Maybe I might have to take my shoe off, my soft science off, because the rubber's not slippery as much as my foot's. And this is all I do. Wind, baby, wind. 2-speed reel, we're going plenty fast. Tighten up the drag a little, because I backed off the drag while I got it sitting there. When I got all my rods in the rod racks, like you see there, I back all the drags off, not quite the free spool, but almost. And then that way we can go and they're ready to go when we're ready to go. Just went in the 2-speed, high speed. And this is 65 diamond braid. It breaks at about 75 pounds. And then using the glove so that it doesn't burn up my fingers. We're just gonna go until we fill it up. It's a poor man's way, baby, but it works. Been doing this for probably way too long. Now I got my little man Rich. He's over here cranking for me all the time. And when Colin's home, put him to work too. The only one that gets out of that work is Mama Murphy, because she's always doing something else to keep the machine running. She's the one who has to order all the line. So once that gets in, she likes to get in the boat and just do all the fun part. That's the catching. But you know what? Can't blame her. Whew, I'm getting tired. You know, the other reason why I like doing this is, the truth is, guys, it's like going to the gym. This is actually, when I get out in the field now, because I've put all this line on all these conventional rods and reels, what it's done is it's gave me the exercise. My shoulder's burning right now and the biceps are burning. But guess what? That's a lot better. It's like going to the gym, getting ready for it. Keep on going. My left hand's hurting from holding this big old rod. But when I get a big fish on, you're gonna see a great Sportsman Adventures where we're down in Grenada catching monster fish, offshore fish. And make no mistake about it, loading up 50s and 80s this way is really part of being ready for when you get out in the field. So remember this about conventionals. If I fill it all the way up to the rim, if I have an inexperienced angler fishing with me, as you can tell, this part is beveled at an angle. If they don't level wind the line on there, then I could potentially have it pile up on one side and still be 40 or 50 feet away from the fish. And then no more cranky. So it's really important that when you do fill these, that you don't fill them to the top of the spool, because then you're relying on the experience of whoever's on the rod to make sure that they wind it on there. And in the heat of the moment, when you have all that excitement, a jumping marlin, a sailfish, big grouper way down deep, people forget the level wind. And that's where a lot of times when it gets loaded up and now you can't reel anymore, now you gotta push the button and back off and let the fish back down. And you explain that to somebody that, oh, you gotta let the line back out after they've been fighting something for an hour or maybe longer or less, is not a happy place. So anyway, I think you guys got a simple 101 Murphy style on how we're gonna load up our rods and reels. We can use our foot, a couple 5-gallon buckets, and we're good to go. It's that simple. I'll tie a bimini in this, put my wind on leader back, and I'm ready for my next trip to the Gulf. If you wanna see more of these tips, all you gotta do is subscribe at the bottom of the screen.